What up, it's your boy T-Bear in reaction. Today's Films Friday. Now we about to get into the meat and potato of Films Friday, which is the Dead Meat Kill Count. And this week is Stranger Things week, so we're going to keep with part 2 of season 1 of Stranger Things. But before we get there, we have a little special end kill count trailer. You know, sometimes I do that time with if it's horror, if it's horror movie based, you know, because that means mostly about horror films or anything, or based on the horror movie that I'm doing a kill count reaction to. So anyway, this is actually a horror movie that's getting its first video game release. You know what I mean? It had been one of the OGs of horror, the big threes of horrors. You know what I'm saying? Along with big four, Fat Four, I should say, along with Freddy Krueger, Jason, and Michael Myers. He's actually the first of the slashers as well too. That's done in Leatherface. This is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre video game, and this is the release date real trailer. That's why I'm keeping it within the video. So without further ado, let's check it out. Oh! Whoa! Oh! Oh!
Be a lot of fear, but we'll be on the run.
Hey, technical test made by the wipe. Oh, 2 days off my birthday. Oops. Hold on. That's 2 days from my birthday. Oh my god. Ew. I'm gonna check this out real quick. So let's check this out real quick. Oh god. I think the same one. I think that's the same company that made the Jason game. That's why it looks like, wow. The Friday 13th game, I should say.
This is gonna be fun.
It's like the same. It's like the same engine, like him, like, you know, same kind of gameplay, kind of. Like you play either the victims or the killers.
You can't hide from me.
Oh!
This is your own fault.
You know I gotta do reactions to the kills of these soon when it comes out, like I did with the Friday 13th one. Wow. All right, there you have it. Hold on. There's more of it. No. Okay. I gotta hold on. I gotta get back. I kind of lost my track, but give me back. I'm back. So now we about to do the kill count reaction for Stranger Things season 1 part 2. So without further ado, let's check out where we left off at. Let's get it.
Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror media. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're gonna finish up Stranger Things Season 1, released on Netflix in 2016. No, there's no more intro to do. I did all that last time. Let's get back to the kills.
Exactly.
Episode 5 begins at Hawkins' lab, which, gotta say, doesn't seem to have the best security measures in place. Chief of Police Jim Hopper sneaks his way through the hallways and, pretty recklessly, walks straight into a clearly biohazardous section of the facility. He's held up at gunpoint by a couple of guards, but Hopper's not the kind of guy to let that stop him, you know? He's one of them real go-getters. He finds Eleven's old room, which has some pretty rudimentary art on display. Damn, El, you can move shit with your mind, but you can't do better than stick figures? She's lounging around in the Wheeler basement as our Bike Kid heroes try to figure out what Will said on the radio. With Eleven's help, Mike's able to piece together what she meant earlier when she was talking about the Upside Down.
What if this is Hawkins and this is where Will is? The Upside Down. Like the Veil of Shadows.
Dustin looks up the Veil of Shadows in his D&D book and reads about how the alternative dimension is a real nasty place. His narration plays in voiceover as Hopper treads deeper into Hawkins' lab, getting closer and closer to the Upside Down's entrance. It's a place full of dandruff and pulsating wall web things, but Hopper ain't afraid to put his hand in them jelly strings. Stick ya! Before he can fully breach the barrier, though, he's finally stopped by some scientists and their drugs. Jonathan Byers gets home and finds his dad Lonnie there with his mom Joyce, ostensibly concerned about her since, well, I mean, she did axe a hole through the side of her house. Right. It might not be so bad having Pops around, except the dude's got no love for indie splatter flicks.
Take that down. It's inappropriate.
Better not come for that Bowie poster next, Lamon. On the day of Will's funeral, most of the town grieves his passing, even though the people closest to Will know he's not actually dead.
Let's wait till we tell Will that Jennifer Hayes was crying at his funeral.
One person unable to make it to the funeral is Chief Hopper, who wakes up on his couch after that neck needling, with his home set dressed to look like he went on a binger. But if there's one thing Jim Hopper knows, it's what a hangover feels like. And this is definitely not a hangover. He searches his house in a frantic montage set to some great drum-heavy music. And it goes on for so long, you start to think maybe he's just being paranoid. But in the end, he wins this round of Finders Keepers when he discovers a microphone hidden inside his ceiling light. Bastard buggers. Jonathan tells Nancy that he's figured something out. Since his house, Steve Harrington's house, and Mirkwood, where they found Will's bike, are all right next to each other, he thinks the creature Nancy saw must be living in the surrounding woods, and he wants to go look for it.
And if we do see it,
we kill it.
Yeah, but how you gonna do? Oh, you've got a gun. Yep, that'll usually do it, huh? Over funeral snack time, the kids talk to Mr. Clark about Carl Sagan and parallel universes. He says the only way a person could theoretically travel to one of them, like the Veil of Shadows, is to create a massive amount of energy and just pen punch your way through, creating a gate between dimensions. The boys relay that information to Eleven and ask her if she knows where a gate might be. She says she doesn't, but Dustin realizes that their compasses aren't pointing to true north, because he's a nerd like that. If the compasses are instead pointing to a strong energy source, perhaps they're pointing to the gate. And Eleven's so excited to find that gate. Really, she's super thrilled. This will be awesome. Great plan. Steve Harrington comes over to Nancy's house and apologizes for not being any help in her search for Barb. But despite his apology and a committed risky business bit,
just take those old records off the shelf.
Nancy says she can't hang out with him right now. Sorry, Steve, she's got some monster brains to bash. And looks like she might not even have to resort to melee weaponry, cause she rolling nat 20s on ranged attacks. Nancy and Jonathan head into the woods where their new friendship runs into trouble when they begin discussing the merits and demerits of one Steve Harrington.
I don't like most people. He's in the vast majority.
This kid is so ready for grunge music to hit the scene. Joyce discovers that Lonnie's only sticking around to get some lawsuit money, so she yells at him to GTFO. He tries to turn it back around on her and blame her for Will's death, but there's no way you're about to win an argument against the awesome acting power of Winona Ryder, dude.
Maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm out of my mind, but God help me, I will keep these lights up until the day I die if I think there's a chance that Will's still out there. Now, get out! Get out of my house!
Peace
Joyce
out.
gets a visit from Hopper, who's intending to look for any bugs hidden in her lights. It's gonna be a tough search though. He does it anyway, until he's satisfied with their safety, at which point he tells Joyce that she was right about her son's apparent death.
Will's body was a fake. You were right. This whole time you were right.
Damn, that's gotta feel good for her to hear. The kids follow their compasses to find the gate, walking along some railroad tracks in a direct homage to Stand By Me, since Stephen King's influence is all over this series. Eleven's still freaking out about the prospect of finding the gate, and thinks back to a time when her papa wanted to use her powers for more Cold War spying. She was lowered into a sensory deprivation tank, allowing her to enter the void, a blank plane of nothingness where she was free to walk around and locate hallucinate people like this Russian. That's great for all these scientists who can hear the Russian speaking through their speakers, but it's scary for Eleven since there are other things here too. Yeah, not the same calming experience you often hear about with sensory deprivation tanks. The Compass crew's plan is foiled after they reach a junkyard and realize that their compasses are now pointing in a whole new direction. Lucas realizes that Eleven's been sabotaging their efforts by mentally manipulating the needles with her mind, and he catches her red sleeve, the saboteur! Lucas gets pissed and says Eleven is a traitor who's letting Will die without their help. The dispute boils over into a boy fight until Eleven ends it with some interference that's a bit too heavy-handed. Lucas comes to, still pissed off, and storms away from his friends. Mike and Dustin look around and discover that Eleven's fled the scene too, meaning they've just had a real breaking of the fellowship. After sunset, Jonathan and Nancy find an injured deer in the woods bleeding out. Not wanting it to suffer, Jonathan prepares to put it out of its misery, only for it to get pulled away from them. Come here! They try to track where it went, but lose the blood trail, and then somehow get separated from each other. Nancy discovers a dripping hole in a tree trunk and goes to look at it closer, even though there's kind of a growling coming from inside. But she just has to be Nancy in Wonderland, so she climbs through the sticky gap until she's in the Upside Down, where giant dust particles rain free and electronics act all wonky. Oh, and also where the motherfucking Gorgon lives. But maybe we've got him all wrong. Maybe he's a nice guy. No, that's a scary man. The Demogorgon was designed by Aaron Sims, who my buddy Foundflix interviewed back when season 1 came out. Sims had worked with the Duffers on their feature film Hidden, and for Stranger Things, they asked him to design a humanoid monster reminiscent of the works of H.R. Geiger, Guillermo del Toro, and Clive Barker. He came up with the faceless Demogorgon, whose mouth petals were partially based on the mouths of snapping turtles. It might be worth noting that Stranger Things' Demogorgon doesn't actually resemble the Prince of Demons Demogorgon from Dungeons & Dragons, which is an 18-foot-tall demon lord with 2 ape-like heads and tentacles instead of arms. They just share a name. The Duffers wanted the Demogorgon to be a throwback man-in-a-rubber-suit monster, and the practical effects for the being were created by Sims' company Spectral Motion, which also built a lot of monsters for Guillermo del Toro movies, including Hellboy. As you can see here, they made an animatronic head of the Demogorgon with the pedals programmed to move randomly, so the monster would feel organic and alive. The Demogorgon's suit was worn by contortionist Mark Steger, who also portrayed Toby in Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension, and the very disturbing Bunny Man in Holidays in the Easter segment directed by friend of the Dead Meat podcast, Nicholas McCarthy. Of course, the Demogorgon couldn't always be portrayed by...
What kind of sick movie is Holiday?
Practical effects. Though the Duffers wanted their show to be 80% practical and only 20% CG, it wound up being more of a 50-50 split. For the CG Demogorgon effects, Aaron Sims was once again at the helm, this time through his other company, Aaron Sims Creative, which also did special effects for movies like the Pete's Dragon remake and The Amazing Spider-Man. Their digital effects are especially used in the final chapter of Stranger Things Season 1, wherein nearly 40% of the episode used some kind of digital enhancement. Nancy runs away from the Demogorgon and is helped out of the tree stump by Jonathan, who hugs her gooey body tightly as he watches the tree trunk close its mini-gate or tear between the dimensions. In a bit of unfortunate timing, Steve takes his shitty friends to surprise visit Nancy and sees through her window Jonathan sitting with her on the bed. Bummer, Harrington. After Steve's gone, Jonathan offers to stay overnight on Nancy's floor to keep her company. She says thanks for the offer, but she'd rather have him be a little closer, since she's still real shook up from the whole seeing a monster in another dimension thing. The next morning, Nancy's still upset since Will and Barb might be in the Upside Down, getting nommed on by the Demogorgon like that deer. She figures that maybe the monster can sniff out blood like a shark, so that's how they can lure it out of the sticky, drippy Underland and fight it in their dimension. Hopper tells Joyce everything he saw at the lab, including the little kid's room, which he thinks drawings was used to hold Will captive. But when he mentions the shitty drawing, Joyce says it couldn't have been Will, because he draws cabbage-flinging wizards like a little Jack Kirby. Hopper remembers that a kid was seen at Benny's diner the night before he died, and connects it to that Terry Ives woman he read about in the library, the one who sued Hawkins' lab because she claimed they took her daughter Jane.
I mean, what if this whole time I've been looking for Will? I've been chasing after some other kid.
I mean, I'd still find that commendable, Chief. They go to visit Ms. Ives and are led into the house by Terry's sister Becky, played by filmmaker and actor Amy Seimetz, who was previously on the kill count in both You're Next as daughter Amy and Alien Covenant as pilot Maggie. Becky shows them to Terry, played by Amy Mullins, who's not only an actor, public speaker, and fashion model, but also an athlete who, despite a double leg amputation when she was 1 year old, competed in NCAA events and the 1996 Paralympics. I just found that pretty cool. Unfortunately for Joyce and Hopper, Terry hasn't talked in 5 years. She's been catatonic since MK Ultra, which she participated in while unknowingly pregnant. When Joyce asks after Terry's daughter Jane, Becky says
explains why Eleven has the power she has, the stability she has. Wow.
Girl was never born.
Terry miscarried in the 3rd trimester.
So the official story, which Terry's sister believes, is that Jane never existed. Terry only imagined she did in her grief over the miscarriage. But the show's editing tells us that Jane does exist. She's 11, and we know why Dr. Brenner took her from Terry.
Her baby's a weapon of fighting the commies.
I mean, yeah, that's exactly right. After listening back to their interception of Will's transdimensional radio call, Hawkins' lab sends a dude over to the middle school to check out the equipment.
It's the girl from Meet the Browns.
In the AV room.
Apparently, some of the less athletic types go nuts for this stuff.
Brenner's enforcer Connie Frazier visits Mr. Clark to learn more about these less athletic kids and charms their names out of the earnest science teacher, meaning Hawkins' lab now knows about our adolescent heroes. Mike has a tantrum over his new 11-less state and complains to Dustin about how Lucas drove her away. But Dustin ain't about to go easy on any of them.
All 3 of you were being a bunch of little assholes. I was the only reasonable one.
He says that Mike and Lucas need to make up so they can all go find Eleven, who's been sleeping out in the woods and carrying around that lace front wig like it's a rabbit pelt or something. Mike and Dustin visit the remarkably well-dressed Lucas, who wants them to forget about Eleven and just go look for Will on their own. They say they need Eleven's powers to succeed, but since Lucas ain't about to fuck with all that, he takes off on his own. He arms and dresses himself up like a little badass, complete with a camouflage bandana that actor Caleb McLaughlin suggested himself. On his way out, he sees a Hawkins Power and Electric van. But surely that's just a friendly blue-collar worker, right? Nothing to worry about here. As she walks into a grocery store for sustenance, Eleven thinks back to a time when Dr. Brenner lowered her into the water tank to go on another search for him. Man, thinking about the void gets you mighty gosh darn hungry. And boy does Eleven love her some Eggo waffles, even if she has to put up with the unwashed masses to get them.
Mouth breather.
That was another SAT term that Mike taught her.
Mouth breather? Yeah, you know, a dumb person.
She pays for her waffles with one mighty use of her mind powers, then walks away from the store telling everyone to keep the change. Nancy and Jonathan head to a gun store and stock up on supplies so they can go monster hunting. Their friendship hasn't been received well by Steve and his friends, who just vandalized the local movie theater with some red paint harassment.
Wow.
Nancy confronts them in an alley where they're proselytizing the message further, and she nearly slaps the hair right off of Steve Harrington's head. He tells her to go to hell for having Jonathan in her room the other night and teases Jonathan about his dead little brother. That sparks a fight, obviously, which Jonathan roundly wins. Hey, Jonathan, you won. You won the fight, dude. Lay off his face with your fist, all right? The Hawkins PD shows up, and Powell handcuffs Jonathan while Callahan chases after Steve and his crew.
Hey, come here, little guy.
He doesn't catch the little guys, though, so...
He said, come here, look. Really?
Jonathan's the only one who ends up at the police station, with Nancy sticking by him for support. Lucas follows his compass to Hawkins' lab and walks around the extensive fence perimeter until he finds the perfect spying tree. That's some damn good spying there, Lucas. Tony Velachos would be proud. Meanwhile, Mike and Dustin follow a trail of Eleven's deeds through the town and into the woods. They're just about to find her at her super special Eggo-eating spot when they're confronted by some woods bullies, and they've got a knife! Oh no! The bullies chase them to the cliff overlooking Sattler Quarry, where Troy grabs Dustin and holds him at knife point. Damn, we going full Stephen King here, huh? Troy threatens to cut up Dustin's face unless Mike jumps into the water, not knowing that Finn Wolfhard is a damn ravine jumping professional. But the height on this one is a death sentence for show, so it's a good thing that when Mike takes the plunge, he's saved from certain splattering by Eleven's powers, which stop him mid-air and bring him back up the side of the cliff until he's safely on the ground in front of Dustin and the bullies. Eleven emerges with a bloody nose and starts force kicking these bullies' asses until they're running away with one broken arm and some very bruised egos. Her rejoining of the party gives us the conclusion to her earlier flashback, when, in her void searching, she came across the Demogorgon, its back turned towards her during supper time. She walked up to the monster and touched it, and apparently that physical contact is what opened the rift to the Upside Down, creating the gate in Hawkins' lab. Eleven apologizes to Mike for causing the gate to open, and they have a forgiveness hug that even Dustin gets in on. Oh, that's nice. What's not nice is when that Hawkins Power spy guy sees Eleven with Dustin and Mike and calls it into the lab. A team of very well-armed scientists is scrambled, which Lucas sees from his spy nest, and speeds down the road towards the Wheeler house. Mike tells Eleven that he's happy she's back, but before they can share a little kiss, they get a call from Lucas on the radio. He tells them that the G-Men are coming to get Eleven, but it's too late to do anything. Them motherfuckers are already here. The kids get on their bikes and ride through many a street and playground game until they meet up with Lucas and make the party whole again. The vans chase them down, but Eleven helps them get away with the most flagrant use of her powers yet. The Duffers wanted to do that van flip practically, combining a shot of the kids on their bikes with a separate shot of the van flipping. Nice. Unfortunately, the first time they filmed that van shot, one of the explosives didn't go off properly, and it ended up destroying a very expensive camera and its lens. Thankfully, they were able to try a second time, and it worked. The van flip impresses the boys and even Dr. Brenner a bit, but I won't be counting any kills here since none are 100% confirmed. They get back to the junkyard where their party split over the compass debacle, and Lucas thanks Eleven for saving them from the G-Men. He apologizes for being mean to her, and Mike apologizes to Lucas for shoving him, so everyone can be friends again now. Yay, friendship! At least, yay, friendship with good friends. Bloody-faced Steve has some shitty friends, and breaks up with them after they're too obnoxious about Nancy.
The slut with the heart of gold.
I told you to watch your mouth. Hey!
Good riddance, dude. Those two sucked. Steve repents for his misdeeds by going to the theater and cleaning up his mess. His atonement and redemption was written into the series because the Duffers really liked actor Joe Keery. Nice. Originally, Steve was more of a straightforward douchebag, but I'm glad the Duffers fell in love with the guy. He's one of the best parts of seasons 2 and 3. Hopper and Joyce get to the police department and find Jonathan there in handcuffs. Hop's cops show them the box of goodies found in Jonathan's trunk, forcing him and Nancy to admit that they were gonna go monster hunting in the woods. Hopper overhears from another part of the station that bullied Troy complaining about how his arm was broken by a girl with a shaved head. Knowing that this has to be his mystery child, Hopper asks where the girl might be, and Troy says probably hanging with the Bicycle Boys. Brenner and Connie Frazier, who works for the FBI, go to the Wheeler house and make themselves at home. They tell Mike's parents that he's been hiding a dangerous girl, and that the only way they can ensure Mike's safety is if they help them find him. The G-Forces confiscate all this potentially satanic gaming equipment as Hopper watches from afar. He insists that Nancy stay with them now, since her family's already been compromised. Well, I mean, Karen hasn't, at least not entirely, but Ted, he's got a raging full-staff flag.
Honey, we have to trust them, okay? This is our government.
They're on our side.
Using Lucas's intel from his spying on Hawkins' lab, the kids start planning a way to get inside so they can go through the gate into the Upside Down and save Will. But since they're fugitives now, there are helicopters out looking for them. They hide their bikes and themselves from the eyes in the sky inside a school bus, which at one point had to be evacuated during production because one of the boys kept farting. Don't know which one of them it was, but I'm sure it was hilarious. They're still in this Dutch oven of a bus when Joyce Byers and co. get back to her house, and Hopper calls the boys on the radio, promising to help. A couple of cars with some G-men arrive at the junkyard first, though, and after one of them finds the bikes beneath the bus, he goes to come aboard, only to get attacked by an off-screen Hopper in a kind of cartoonish way. Hey! With a couple more car honks and one mighty auga, Hopper finishes the fight and tells the kids to come with him. He takes them back to the Byers' house where Mike and Nancy hug it out and a bunch of people get their first look at 11.
Is that my dress?
Everyone catches each other up, with the boys explaining the gate concept and Hopper saying he's seen it. It's that nasty pulsating thing he found underground in the room that holds 11's personal dunk tank. They ask 11 to look for Will and Barb in the void, but she's too weak from all that van flipping to properly use her powers. If only they could recreate a sensory deprivation tank, which they might just be able to do with some help from Mr. Clark, who's an apparent admirer of Rob Bottin's work.
Melted plastic and microwave bubblegum.
They interrupt his VHS and chilling with a phone call, and after some pestering,
VHS and chilling before Netflix and chill, it was VHS and chill.
Dustin convinces him to tell them how to make a tank. You know, like a sensory deprivation one, not like an Abrams. The plan requires 1,500 pounds of salt, so they head to Hawkins Middle School and ransack its salt supply. As Dustin and Lucas set up a kiddie pool in the middle of the gym, the siblings Wheeler fetch a hose for the water supply in one of my favorite undersung one-on-one character scenes. I'm a sucker for nice sibling stuff. Joyce thanks 11 for risking herself to find Will, and then they get their pool of water salty enough to float eggs. Egg floats. 11 climbs on in and gets to work, putting herself in the void so she can go looking for the missing loved ones. First, she finds Barb, or rather Barb's body, because remember, that girl dead. I put her on the kill count fucking ages ago. Sorry about that, Nance, but at least you have closure now. The death discovery upsets 11, but Joyce calms her down with some motherly compassion. 11 continues on until she comes across Castle Byers, and inside is its king, Sir William I. Unlike Barb, Will's not dead, but he's not exactly doing great there either. He's still able to talk though, which everyone hears over the radio, and 11 tells him to just hold on. They're coming to save— No wait, Will, she said hold on, dude. As in don't disappear into smoke. Damn it, Will, listen please. 11 comes out of the void, and Chief Hopper and Joyce leave to go to the lab and get into the Upside Down to save Will. Jonathan and Nancy are left behind to babysit, but she's not interested in just sitting around and waiting for the adults to do their thing.
I want to finish what we started. I want to kill it.
The two of them head to the police station and stealthily steal back their goodies, along with a bonus fire extinguisher, while Hopper and Joyce break in through the fence of Hawkins' lab. But this place has finally upped its security, so they're surrounded by armed guards before they can get inside. Better think of something fast, Hop, cause Will is a very wet pal boy who needs your help. After all, he's got a monster outside his castle walls, and who knows how long they'll hold. I guess not long at all. Dr. Brenner talks to Joyce and tells her he wants to save Will, but he needs her help to do it. But she ain't having it.
Go to hell.
Hopper's having even worse of a time, getting tasered and questioned by that one security guy, Scary Connie Frazier, and not Walton Goggins there. He tells them that even though he knows everything they've done, he'll agree to forget about all of it if they just let him and Joyce go find Will. Brenner only agrees on the added condition that Hopper tells him where 11 is. Hop takes the deal and tells Joyce the terms and conditions he just agreed to.
Look, everything that's happened here and everything that's gonna happen, we don't talk about. You want Will back? This place had nothing to do with it. That's the deal.
The two of them are led to some hazmat suits, which they'll need to don as they enter the Upside Down to look for Will. The look for the Upside Down, which was executed by production designer Chris Trujillo, was inspired by artists across various media, including Masahiro Ito and his work in the Silent Hill video games, Ridley Scott's landscapes in the seminal sci-fi horror Alien, and the hellish paintings by Polish artist Zdzisław Beksinski, whose work is fucking dope and whose name I probably pronounced poorly. My apologies. Mike and the others realize that Jonathan and Nancy have ditched them. They've returned to the buyer's house to set up a trap for the Demogorgon. And if you want to make your show seem 80s, there is absolutely no better way to do it than with a montage of kids booby-trapping their home. The funny thing about Stranger Things' 80s nostalgia is that the Duffers were born in 1984. They didn't actually have the kind of childhood they're portraying in the show. In fact, it might be better to think of Stranger Things as a depiction of what things were like in 80s movies rather than 80s real life.
True.
Even the look of the show is kind of ersatz. With the help of cinematographers Tim Ives and Todd Campbell, the Duffers shot Stranger Things on a digital camera, the Red Dragon, then added in grains scanned from 80s film stock to give it the era-appropriate look. I think it works pretty well, so props to the guy who employed that trick, the show's colorist Skip Kimball, who also worked on Avatar. All that's left to do to attract the shark-like Demogorgon is to cut open their palms and shed some blood. Nancy and Jonathan share a nice moment that's interrupted by a banging on the door. It's Steve Harrington, but remember, we can still like him. He's a good boy now. He's not here to start shit, he tells Nancy. He just wants to apologize. But tough break for the guy. His attempt to make good is met with a gun pointed at him and Nancy telling him to get out. Jesus, Nance. A blinking light storm tells them it's too late. The Demogorgon has arrived. Shoot that motherfucker, Nancy. Run, everybody. And make sure you hop over that bear trap, Steve. Good work, dog. They bunker down inside Jonathan's room, but the monster never follows them there. Eventually, they leave their safe hold, and after another round of flashing lights, the Demogorgon spawns from darkness to knock Jonathan to the ground. Drooley! Nancy shoots the monster, but it brushes off the bullets and is just about ready to kill her when Steve jumps in with a baseball bat. He wields it to great effect, knocking the monster back into the bear trap. And with it trapped in the hallway, Jonathan jumps in and lights the thing on fire. Wait, but why are you putting it out so fast, dude? I know that's your house and everything, but shouldn't you have let the monster burn a little more? I think you should have, because maybe if you had, you wouldn't have gone and lost it. In the Upside Down, Hop finds a broken xenomorph-looking egg that never gets fully explained. Like, we saw the Demogorgon kind of eating from one when Eleven found it in the void, but the eggs never really come up again. Whatever. Joyce comes across the remains of Castle Byers, and with Will nowhere in sight, that means his stuffed lion is up for grabs. Nice! Jim Hopper all about them stuffed lions. I'm just kidding. It was actually his terminally ill daughter Sarah who loved stuffed animals. But it's impossible for me to make jokes about these sickly kid flashbacks, so how about we just move the fuck on, alright? They get to Joyce's Upside Down house, hope she's not getting double taxed because of that thing, and their arrival triggers the Christmas lights in our normal right side up dimension, showing how Will was able to communicate with his mom earlier in the season. Jonathan recognizes his mother's presence, and Joyce hears him from the other side. So all in all, this is a nice little scene that serves as a great payoff to all the half interactions we witnessed in earlier episodes. Back at the school, the kids move from the gym in the main building to the cafeteria in a separate building, I guess, so Dustin and Lucas can ransack the school's cache of pudding. Meanwhile, Mike has a one-on-one chat with Eleven, whose name is kind of a one-on-a-one. He says that she should move in with his family after all this is over, but not for them to be like brother and sister. He'd rather they be like boyfriend and girlfriend. Michael, my word. Brenner and his government goons arrive at the gym, having been told by Hopper that's where Eleven will be. They eventually corner the kids in the hall, but this is no laughing matter, and Eleven's not going down without a fight. Instead, she uses her powers to kill Connie Frazier and the 6 G-men surrounding them by making their brains bleed out of their faces. Damn, that was intense. Intense enough to knock Eleven out completely. The boys try to help Eleven up, but Brenner appears and tells them to leave her alone. Despite some energetic defiance,
eat shit!
The boys are no match for the armed adults, so they're seized as Brenner takes Eleven and gets straight to work emotionally manipulating her.
I'm going to take you back home where I can make you well again. where we can make all of this better.
Before she's fully awake again, though, the Demogorgon's flashy call sign starts going off. Because of all that blood on the ground, it's been lured to the school and is now coming straight out the wall in one of those CG effects Aaron Sims Creative had to make. The G-men open fire as the boys grab Eleven and get her out of there. Brenner looks straight shocked at the sight of this monster, and even more shocked when it knocks him to the ground. But Brenner's not going on the kill count, because a character in Season 2 says that he's alive, and the Duffers have implied that's true in various interviews. In the Upside Down, Hopper and Joyce follow the Demogorgon's blood trail from the bear trap at the Byers house all the way to the public library. Inside, they find Barb's dead body and Will's not dead body, but he does have a throat full of tentacles, so why don't you give him a hand with that, Chief? There you go, man. Yeah, maybe just shoot that thing to pieces for good measure. The boys take Eleven into Mr. Clark's classroom as off-screen gunfire is heard by desperate soldiers fighting the Demogorgon. I can't confirm kills through sounds alone though, so nothing definitive to put on the count right now. The Demogorgon breaks into the classroom where it gets hit by Lucas with his wrist rocket a few times. But it's not a fancy slingshot that finally sends the monster back into the blackboard. It's a rejuvenated Eleven, here to teach this Demogorgon some manners. She looks all sorts of scary as she walks up to the monster she's still holding down with her mind. With one last look back, she says her farewells.
Goodbye, Mike.
And cranks her powers all the way up to, her, I guess, so she can dissolve the Demogorgon right where it stands. Whoa, is she turning it into bees? It almost looked like she was turning it into bees. When she's done, there are no bees left. In fact, there's nothing left. Not even 11. Sorry, Mike. In happier news, though, Hopper and Joyce are able to resuscitate Will after a lengthy chest-pounding session that made Hopper think of his daughter, who couldn't be saved. Oh wait, that's not happier news. Now I have to put a child death on the count. That's sad as hell news, man. I hate my job. The scene is a really good moment in the show, though, with Hopper getting to save a surrogate child and Joyce finally getting her baby back. Aw, and look, Karen gets Mike back too. So we're having more nice mother-son moments all over the damn place. Never mind, y'all. I love my job. Sometime later, Will comes to in the hospital and finds his mom and brother waiting for him at his bedside. Might sound weird, but Noah Schnapp seems like the perfect kid actor to play a sick kid. Does that sound weird? I mean, it's true. Look at him. His friends are let in, and overjoyed, they go all Return of the King on it. I can just hear Frodo's slow-mo laughing right now. 1 month later, the kids are back to playing Dungeons and Dragons in Mike's basement, with Will the Wise landing a fireball on an evil Thessal Hydra. Or I guess it'd probably be a neutral Thessal Hydra, huh? In any case, they're having a great time being together again, playing games and farting and singing songs about farting.
Dustin farting.
Okay.
If only Mike could be laughing and farting with Eleven, too. Jonathan picks Will up, and before he leaves the Wheeler house, he gets a gift and a cheek smooch from Nancy. The gift's a replacement camera, but the cheek smooch doesn't mean they're together, because as we see, Nancy's still with her sweater daddy Steve. Still, maybe they can use that camera to get a better picture of Will for when the newspapers run articles on how he's the zombie boy wonder. Not one to get bogged down in holiday cheer, Chief Jim Hopper leaves the police department Christmas party early with some extra food in hand. He sets that food, and some Eggo waffles, in a box for Eleven in the woods. He'll be taking care of her from now on, out of the guilt he feels for selling her out to Brenner. At the Byers house, which is looking a lot more nice and hole-free these days, the Byers settle in for a little Christmas din-din. But not all is well on this day of JC's birth, for the season ends with young William Byers hacking out an upside-down slug into the sink, and getting a good look at what a bathroom begins to look like when you don't practice proper maintenance cleaning. How many people died in the 8 hours of content I just went through? Let's find out and get to the numbers.
Of course, he's in the upside down world.
There were 17 deaths in Stranger Things Season 1. The victims consisted of 3 females, 13 males, and 1 Demogorgon from the upside flipping down. Bet that slice of pie is good and slimy. With a season of 8 episodes, that meant each episode had an average of 2.13 kills. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to Connie Frazier and the goons that Eleven took down with her mind. It's scary the way they just start bleeding out their eyeballs like that. Dull machete for lamest kill will go to the G-Men 11 killed while fleeing Benny's diner. Seriously, did she kill them with spoons or what? And that's it. Stranger Things Season 1 was released to Netflix in 2016 and immediately became a smash hit. It would be followed by a second season in 2017, but give me a couple of weeks to get those episodes ready. Like I said, covering a TV series is a ton of work. Until next time, I'm James A. Janice, and this has been The Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching this Kill Count. I want to thank some patrons like Aaron.
So, do you have it? That's season 1 of Stranger Things, though. So, next week, we return to Scream Week, and we're recovering Scream 3. After that, we're covering Predator 2. And before I go to Stranger Things, I might return to poll. Other than that, well, let's see. I'm gonna cap up March with Scream 5 and then Scream 3, and then we're gonna afterwards we're gonna return to poll. But other than that, if you like my reaction, like, share, subscribe my YouTube channel. It's your boy T-Bear signing off. One love.